Welcome to The Incredible Messenger, a blend of real-world stories, expert insights, and proven strategies that keep our families, communities, and cities safe and healthy. Moving beyond rhetoric and politics to practical solutions and community safety, here's your host, Jonathan McMillan.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jonathan McMillan, the host of the Credible Messenger podcast, and we're coming back to you with another conversation with another credible messenger. You know, I've done this work for quite a while, doing direct services, being involved in policy conversation and in spaces where I'm working with decision makers. And I've found when I do my best work is when I have the ear of, or the guidance, I would say, the mentorship of people who are doing similar work like me. And when I have what I would call a consigliere, somebody who I can ask questions of and someone who I can talk to when things are going bad and someone I can talk to when things are going good. Our guest today is one of those people. He literally was my partner when we were out here doing direct services together. We would drive around visiting clients and building relationships with our young folks together. We would be riding side by side and having some of the best conversations. So I'm really excited about this episode of the podcast because I'm bringing that person to you all, and we're going to have another one of those conversations. As usual, I don't have a bio to read to you because I want to introduce you all to him as how I know him. This is my friend, my brother, my partner, my colleague, my mentor, my friend. I don't even know what else to say about him. He's super dope, Mr. Troy Grimes with the Legacy Foundation. Troy, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on this Saturday morning. Sit in front of a screen for an hour or so.
You get too much vitamin D out there in the sun. I had to bring you in. Troy, man, you heard me when I introduced you. You mean the world to me. I've learned so much just being in your presence, and then even furthermore talking with you and listening and being mentored by you. I know you have an incredible story, so I wanted to bring you on the show so that other people could be inspired by you, hear who you are, how you move, how you operate in this space, because I think that it is a blueprint. So will you take a few minutes and tell people who you are and what is the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is part of the work. Part of this work is me developing as a person, because I think that's a duty that we all have to ourselves, is just to continue to grow and get better with each day. And so having a platform to speak about who I am really isn't my favorite platform to have, or what I do, etc. I just like to do what I do without really having to speak about it a lot. However, I've been stretching myself to become more comfortable with doing so. So again, my name is Troy Grimes, friend, confidant of Mr. Jonathan McMillan. I am a Denver born and raised son of Kenneth and Jerry Grimes. I come to you today wearing many hats, which I always have. I am executive director and co-founder of Legacy Foundation for Family and Community Development, which came from Project Proud Fatherhood, which a lot of folks know me from since 2007. I also am on the board of the Park Hill Falcons youth organization, as well as working with University of Colorado Youth Violence Prevention Center, and also coach of the Far Northeast Warriors varsity basketball team, just to say a few. And the second part of that question is, what do I do? Because those are all titles, and I'm not a big title person, but I consider myself a servant to my family, my children, my parents, my wife, and to the community. And I think the Most High has blessed me to add something else to my servitude, and that's my ability to lead. So I consider myself a servant leader within the community, and doing exactly that. Being able to serve where there is need and lead where there is leadership needed in order to provide the best service available.
Again, I've witnessed you be intentional into um, expanding your comfort zone, right? Or
Mhm.
shrinking your comfort zone. I don't know which one it is, but
Right,
either way,
right.
it's growing in spaces so that you can be better for yourself and better for all those who you intentionally serve. So
hmm
I appreciate all that. I think you like you say, you wear a lot of hats. You wear so many hats. I think there's one that you might have missed, in that you are a co-chair of a community coalition focused on youth violence prevention under the Communities That Cares model with Park Hill Strong. Uh, but when I'm listening to you, I hear a connection between all of the different things, that the different titles and the way that you serve those titles or fulfill those titles in the roles that what you do. Um, can you talk a little bit about why you do what you do?
Sure. Yeah, and chair of Park Hill Strong Coalition is another one of those roles I play within the community. I've been a part of the actual coalition or the sister or brother coalition in far northeast called Steps of Success for probably around 12 to 15 years now. The why I think is more so for me, like, why not? And that comes from my grandparents instilled in my parents the principles of serving. And so both of my parents raised myself and my brother and anyone who was connected with us to be servants. And I may have asked that question when I was child. Why am I serving? Why do I have to go volunteer here? Why are you pushing me to lead in this situation or that situation? I just want to fall back or what have you. But now, as a grown man, the question for me is why not? Because if that's what I'm placed here to do, then I shouldn't be looking for reasons as to why. I should only see that there's no reasons why not to do what we do. Um, my children, when I say my children, not just my birth children, but all of the youth that I'm so blessed to be attached to within this community in so many different ways, they are exceptional. However, they need guidance just like we did,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And as I said, my parents were there to guide me and other people, other professionals, other community servants. And so if I know what that looks like, feels like, if I know the impact it has, then why wouldn't I extend the legacy and continue to do so for those that come behind me?
Great answer as always. It's you provoke thought and reflection on what you say. There's a whole lot of questions came out of your response there. um I think the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that the answer to the question is, you said why not.
Right.
Knowing you the way I do, I know that there's something else in there as well. You and I both know there's a lot of other people, colleagues, contemporaries, doing similar type of work. And if you ask them their why, is going to range between something like, well, I'm fulfilled by what I do, or if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And I think there's a spectrum of between being a martyr and seeing
Mhm.
the work as a burden,
Mhm.
and having seeing the work as a purpose, right? Or even if you want to even go more to the extreme of it's ego driven. And and I don't know if anybody would ever acknowledge this, but I do this because I get seen doing the work. I get recognized doing the work. I get popular doing the work. It fulfills the ego in there. How do you balance in there, or do you even feel a need to balance between viewing the work as a burden because you could be like, why not? Like no one else is going to do it, or I know again you're a very modest person, so like, is there a process to balance your why with that why not?
hmm Um, for me, not so much. For me, I'm kind of, when I take all those personality assessment type of surveys and all those tools, they all speak towards me being a balanced person by nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, balance, that's where I sit just naturally. And so, and I don't think it has to be a bad thing. It's definitely not for me, I don't believe. But yeah, there's, in being a servant leader, there's some self serving portions of that for me. And so for me, those self serving things are, I feel gratification from getting up and living within my purpose each day. And that I actually feel good about, what the work that I do and what I'm able to accomplish within a day. I'm not counting the number of people that I impacted, this, that, and the other, but I know that something about something I did during that day had a positive impact in someone else's life. And that's gratifying to
Mm-hmm.
me. And so there's definitely some self-serving aspects to doing this work as well.
And I agree with you 100%. That's not a completely bad thing. It's
Mhm.
actually, I think it's I don't want to use the phrase self-care, but
Mhm.
when you are doing what you feel like you're supposed to do,
Mhm.
uh, then you don't have
Different.
the stress and anxiety of feeling unfulfilled, feeling like
Mhm.
you're just lost out here and not knowing what you're on this planet for, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, like several years ago, because like I said, when I was younger, I did say why. And so I was doing like banking and sales and insurance, and I'm really good in that as well. That's just a part of me. My mom had that business side. My dad has more of that arts and just a creative side. And so I was leaning more to, that business side that I attained from my mother. And I thought I wanted to make all the money and have money. So I was going in these money fields. And I remember I was working for Wells Fargo at the time and thinking about going for a position where I knew that if I went for that, I probably was going to get it. And that probably was going to be my career for the rest of my life because I knew I was going to excel within that position, make money, and do really good for my family. I think it was just two of my 8 kids were with me at that time or around or born. And I sat in my desk, or at that time it was a little cubicle, and I pulled out. This is an activity that, we do with folks now, just to help them to like figure out, um, what's valuable in their life and what isn't.
mhm,
But me, I don't know what made me do this, but I wrote on one side of the paper all those things that were important to me in my life. And on the other side, I wrote all those things that weren't important. I folded it up and then I looked at it. I folded it in half and I looked at it, and this position, this career move that I was getting ready to make, it didn't really hold. It didn't have all those things that were most valuable to me. Like they weren't. It wasn't really going to provide that. It was going to provide money and security and me feeling like I'm doing the right thing as a man to take this role and this, that, and the other. But all of those other things that I had as far as helping people and community and this, that, and the other, not to say that you can't do all those things, holding those types of positions, do volunteering and all those type of things. But at that time, it just was clear to me that, yeah, that's not the field that I want to stake my hold in. And then of course, from there, I had to do some searching and say, well, what is it that I do want to do? And I'm looking, and it's right there for me. So I told my dad what I had done and what I was thinking, and he suggested AmeriCorps to me. So I did AmeriCorps Vista. I served in Commerce City in a literacy program and a peer mentorship program I ran at the high school and middle school level there. And I've been doing service work ever since.
So for our audience, how many years ago was that?
Whoa, that was so my daughter was probably 4 years old. I think she's 30 now, so that was like 26 years ago.
It does. It feels like a long time, and it doesn't. Right? It feels
Right, right.
feels like yesterday, and it also feels like a lifetime ago. Right? I
Wow.
get it. And so you've been on that path for a long time, and something I want to follow that train of thought of. Okay, first off, it sounds like this type of work for you is not only a purpose. It's not only the most comfortable and enjoyable thing for you to do, but it's also sounds like a calling. Would you agree in that?
Yeah, I definitely know it's a calling that I'm walking in my purpose and in my calling. And as far as comfortability, because of the nature of what I do, it continuously puts me in uncomfortable situations, which I appreciate because, how else would I grow as a person? So it just inherently comes with some very uncomfortable times that I have to navigate through.
I yes, yes. So here's where I was going with that. You spoke on the exercise that you did in your at your desk in your cubicle to make an informed choice for this direction of your life. In doing this work, there's people who are called to it and do it really well, and other people who are called to it but don't know exactly what they need to do or how to
Right.
do the work. And I'm hoping that those people are listening to this episode, to this series in general. Let's say that you have a young person. Let's assume a young man who has come into your life through professional work. What are some of the things that you work with that young person to get them to be more in their lives?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question and a tough question at the same time because I think it just, I think it varies. You have to be very flexible with how you interact with people because we're in the people field,
Mm-hmm.
helping field with actual real live human beings. For me, the first thing I do is listen. You know, we all uh, want to be heard. That's just something that's within us is that we need to know that we're being heard. And when I say heard, it's not just, audible, but just, heard in our feelings, in our emotions, everything. And so, first thing I do with a young man that comes across my path is I try to listen. I try to create an environment where they know that when they're interacting with me, then I'm gonna listen to them, no matter, like I said, if that's audibly or if I'm watching their body language or if I'm just looking around them and seeing what their environment looks like and taking that in and acknowledging their environment without them having to share with me whatever that might be. And then once that young man feels like they actually are being heard, I do see them, I do hear them, then normally, most often in any case that I've ever had, no matter if that's coaching or whatever it may be, then I'm able to begin to develop a more meaningful relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we feel like we're being heard and we're being seen, that empowers us, so to speak. And then once we feel that empowerment, then we feel like, okay, so now this relationship just isn't about this person, telling me what they know or what they think or being the teacher or something like that. I have value in this relationship as well, and
Mm-hmm.
so what I share or what I feel as though I have the expertise on, this person's going to listen to that, whether wrong or right, but this
Mm-hmm.
person's gonna take it as that face value. And so, yeah, it sounds, I don't mean to simplify that, but certain things you don't really have to. We go through all these studies, and like you said, we've been doing this for years and years. I know quite a bit of, the evidence based uh, uh, theory
Yeah.
around how we do this work, this, that, and the other. However, I believe in that and use that, but most of my method of doing this work is practice based, and so it's really just having authentic relationship with the people that I work with.
I love that. I love that because there are technical skills, right? There are technical skills that you can learn in psychology or sociology or whatever it is, human services. But
Yeah,
the
motivational interviewing, very helpful. I teach motivational interviewing to those that work with youth and even youth. But I think the reason why I'm able to teach it is because I intrinsically was, doing practicing motivational interviewing. Just like I said, when I started working with youth over
Mhm.
20 years ago. So,
Yeah, and that's where I was going with it. You can know the technical pieces of it, study it, get an A in class, get a whole degree, but if you don't know how to practically apply it in situations with the youth who have the biggest challenges, right? I won't say challenging youth who have challenges,
mhm,
then
mhm,
you're not going to be able to help that young person help themselves, right? Um,
absolutely.
so I asked this of another guest. I want to get your take on it. I know back when I was doing direct services, and it was that first time that I'm meeting with a young man who's been assigned to my caseload. Um, at the time there was this debate about who was better, J. Cole or Kendrick, and that would be one of the first questions I would ask one of my young people, and I would do
Mhm,
that intentionally because it gave them an opportunity to see me as somebody outside of a
mhm,
probation officer or a professional. It was a cultural question that was authentic to who I am and authentic to who they are. And that was the entryway into building that relationship that you're talking about, given the opportunity for me to listen and hear them and then build upon however they answer that. Do you have do you have a specific question that you tend to ask your young players or your young mentees or the young people who you work with to
mhm.
begin that process?
Right. Um, no, like I said, I think it changes, 'cause I take people in, I look at them, listen to them, and you can kind of find out what that question might be. Every now and again, you might get a kid. Well, to go back, like my basketball kids, if I were to ask that question, they say Lil Durk,
Yeah.
and then I have to go do my research and listen to his music. But yeah, I really just, I might have a kid who I just see that, they're about fashion, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And, for that kid, I might, that might be where I go. Do you like just buying and wearing the fashion? So are you the model or the designer?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, and they open up. And be like, oh no, I do design clothes, and I want to design, and here I actually have sketches and this, that, and the other. Or some be like, nah, I don't know anything about design, but I ain't thinking myself as a model. I said, well, if you're wearing all those fashions of those people, there's opportunities, that they'll provide for you to model their clothes, get paid for it. And so I kind of just, yeah, it's all just a part of that,
Yeah.
looking and listening.
Again, you're so good with this. You really went to where my next question was. A lot of this work, and let's just put it out there. The young people who we tend to work with, and the young people who the audience of this podcast tend to work with, are young people who, in technical terms, we want to see a positive behavior change, because
Hmm.
usually those are the ones at the highest risk of being involved or impacted by gun violence. So with that, you start to build that relationship to hopefully be the person who influences that positive behavior change.
Hmm.
We've already talked about how you can begin to build that relationship so that you become, again, the credible messenger in that person's life. And then you just mentioned you're introducing the opportunities for growth and benefit in their lives that they may be interested in. How do you go about connecting them with those opportunities once you find out what it is that they're interested in, and you see a possibility to help change that behavior?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's an important piece as well, and that also is steeped in relationship building, right? Because I don't want to send this youth who I have a genuine relationship with, um, and I grow to love each and every one of my youth that I come across. I had kids that over 20 years ago, they still reach out, and they're grown now and stuff like that. So I don't want to damage the relationship that I've taken time or I'm taking time to build. And so when you're talking about referring to resources and those types of things, you have to build a relationship with those resources as well. Make sure that they're people that you trust, and agencies and um, those sorts that you actually trust. And uh, for me, that's really tougher.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, uh, I love adults. I work a lot with parents. I work with dads, this, that, and the other. But um, I love the kids more, because adults can tend to get on my nerves. um, so that's a little tougher because you might think that, like you were speaking to or nudging earlier, you might think that someone is in it for the right reasons, and then learn that they're not, and that hurts, when they are in front of children, and I think we're doing the same thing, and we're both there to serve and do the best for these children or these family, and that's really not what their intent is. Or sometimes you could work with agencies, especially governmental agencies, and they don't really care about the children, even though they have some resources that might be helpful to these children, to these
Mm-hmm.
families. The agencies or the systems themselves don't really particularly care about these youth or these families, and it's just about the numbers for them, and they get treated as such. So it's that's a little harder, just vetting and developing those trusted relationships with the resource providers.
So I'm chuckling because you are, I think, the fifth person who I've had on this show, and as we have this conversation about working with our youth and getting resource for them, there's a theme that's coming up about how important it is to cultivate a strong network of resources and allies who are aligned with your purpose. Uh, we had, in a previous conversation, we talked about finding out a young person wants to work, what type of career field they want to go in. And over here, on the other hand, you've had somebody says, yeah, man, hit me up anytime you got youth who need a job. And you do that, you try to do that warm handoff. And then on the other end of the call, they're not calling you back. They're not picking up the
Mm-hmm.
phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're not reaching back out to the young person who
Right.
you've connected with. And the disappointing part, I'll even go further. The part that really, really gets to me is the fact that I don't care if you couldn't do it. Or don't even want to do it. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You are damaging my credentials. You're damaging my credibility. You're damaging this relationship that I've built with this young man because I have committed to helping him out. Now, I mean, obviously, there's an opportunity in there to talk about people are going to disappoint you in what you have to do, how you have to move when people disappoint you. It remains. It's still disappointing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. But there's still an element of grace, and there's an element of, maybe some of these folks, they have the right intent, but they just don't have maybe the know-how or the resources themselves to really pull off what they're trying to pull off. And so I've learned a lot of that as well. And, luckily, like myself, Legacy Foundation, you talked about direct services. A lot of what I learned is my strength and really a big part of my purpose and a part of our mission and vision with Legacy is kind of being that liaison and being that navigator and consultant to help strengthen these networks and to strengthen them by not only just bringing the networks together and creating opportunities to work in unison, but also, for identifying, hey, I think you do this really well, but you might can use some training in this. Would you be open for training with this agency over here? It's something they do really well. And then I think that would essentially really just build the capacity of what you do. And so a lot of the work that I do now and that Legacy Foundation does and intends to do a lot more of for a long time is really that, just not just working with the direct services, but really just strengthening that network of providers and strengthening the relationships between providers, community systems, universities, etc. So that's our role, at Legacy, and that happens to be part of what my role is with the University of Colorado as well.
Uh, Again, you're almost ahead of where my brain was going with this. I wanted you to talk more about the Legacy Foundation. That literally was my next question. You've done a lot of work in the field and doing direct services. You've built some really robust networks and relationships. I see you as a steward of the community in many regards because people come to you for resources, supports, advice. Like I mentioned you as my consigliere earlier. You know, um, so with that, I know you've evolved from being a direct service provider. You've evolved from you've evolved into, I won't say from anything because everything is still a part of you. Uh,
Absolutely.
you've evolved into the service that you have done has evolved into what we now call the Legacy Foundation. You
Mhm.
talked a little bit about that. Um, can you talk more about what the Legacy Foundation is, the services that you provide, and say the vision for what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Legacy Foundation is an extension of or an expansion of Project Proud Fatherhood program. So, Project Proud Fatherhood program is a program that started in 2007 after working for what was then Laurie Family Center, now Families for a Resource Center, and initiating their first fatherhood program and running their fatherhood program for I think 5 or 6 years through a federal grant called Be There for Your Kids. And from there, I kind of found, I had already known that I had this calling to be a servant. But from there, I found that, uh, I had a calling to work specifically with fathers and young boys and families. And so I got credentials as a master fatherhood practitioner from an agency out of Washington, D.C. And I got credentials in family development from a couple of universities and those sorts of things, and really began to expand my scope of work as a provider and as a practitioner. So again, once I left there and began Project Proud Fatherhood program as my own entity, we began to work with fathers and family in all different arenas, whether they be young fathers or old fathers. We did fatherhood classes, parenting classes, couples communication. I went inside of and bringing these opportunities to halfway houses working with men. I did these programs actually in penitentiary settings. I was able to get through a few doors working with a few partners where we had programming there. I worked with Arapahoe County, Denver County, and just different human services with folks. And did that for quite a while. I founded a literacy program for Black boys where the literacy gap most heavily affects our Black boys between 0 and third grade. And there's so much literature and data that shows that's where the school to prison pipeline begins. And that's where, there's so many social determinants of health that have to do with or are connected to literacy or the lack thereof. And so we began that. So, like you said, that kind of grew into, in the past few years, Legacy Foundation. And Legacy Foundation for Family and Community Development still encompasses Project Proud Fatherhood program as one of our programming areas. However, we're able to do more. We're able to, my wife, the co-founder, has a master's in psychology and is able to now bring her expertise to wrap around mental wellness and mental health supports to all of our programs. We provide trainings for not just youth and families, but for practitioners that are working. We have a men's healing circle called AYA, which is a healing circle, again, for Black leaders that we're now getting ready to expand for other men and young men within the community. But we intentionally started with Black leaders, many of whom are also nonprofit leaders or educators, coaches, and all in all these leadership roles within our community. And so we wanted to start up that opportunity for mental wellness with them. So Legacy Foundation, our mission is to dismantle any weapon formed against our children, right? And so it's really that simple. Like there's, literacy, like I said, our mental wellness is one of those things. There's so many things that we need to do or we need to address in terms of really, like I said, dismantling those things that show up in our kids' lives as risk factors, to use a professional or medical term.
Yeah. Man, I love it. Obviously because I get to witness it up close and firsthand, the work that you're doing. I need to ask this question before I go down the path that I want to go. You mentioned in the evolution of working with Families Forward to now Legacy Foundation, working with a lot of school detention facilities, from jails to prisons, government agencies. For someone who is listening to this and says, that's exactly what I want to do you have one or two tips for somebody who's pursuing opportunities like that to work with inside I'm going to put quote unquote, the system?
I think one would be, there's probably a lot of tips, and we would welcome them to get involved with the Legacy Foundation with some of the work that we do, because I can help to kind of be that mentor or consultant for that person that really wants to do this work. However, I think one of the first things I would say is whatever work you intend to do um, with the community or with whomever that is that you plan to serve, do that work with yourself and on yourself first, right? So, if you want to get into business, helping youth to better identify themselves in a positive way, make sure that you're able to do that for yourself and you're constantly in that work of doing that work for yourself as well. So that you can be authentic. And I think too, because you said two things, I think the second one would be to really explore what your why is, which you mentioned earlier, right? Because that why in those really tough times, whether it's being frustrated with the school system or a county that you may be working with, or losing a kid, or feeling like you're doing great work with a young person, but then you're sending them home to a family that is tearing down all that work that you're doing. Whatever that tough time that you might go through doing this work, it's going to have you, or what's going to bring you through that, or to continue and to push through, is really having a connection with your why. So yeah, get real comfortable with identifying what your why is.
Yeah. I'm chuckling over here because I couldn't have scripted this better, because you just mentioned in your tip number one is whatever work you want to do in the community, you have to do that work within first, right? You have to
Mhm.
look at the man in the mirror, and that's your
Mhm.
first client. All right. Uh,
Absolutely.
how do you implement self-care into your life?
Yeah, I think you should assess at least once a year, probably more than once a year, but you should always take some time to assess where you are with things you can improve on, things that are going well, where you are with your goals, setting new goals, etc. And so for the last few years, I've been pretty intentional. I've had to be pretty intentional because of certain things that have happened in my life. Losing a daughter in 2019, losing my mother last year, etc. At looking at what my self care looked like, and not only looking at what it looked like, but really making a commitment to self care. So for me, few things that I have put in place are, remember I said that sometimes this work is self-serving. And so really beginning that healing circle a little bit over a year ago, for the leaders, um, thankfully I've heard from them, and it's been very helpful and useful and valuable in their lives, but it's been probably more so for myself, right? Being able to have that brotherhood with the men in our Aya Healing Circle, and just a place, a safe space to um, be vulnerable. So that's been a big part of my self care for, like I said, a little over a year. And then for me, another part of that self care piece is really making sure that I'm staying true to my mission, not
Mm-hmm.
just the mission of Legacy or the other entities that I might work for, with, or what have you. But my mission, what is my mission? And for me, my mission is to be the best person I could be every day, to be the best father, to be the best husband, brother, son. And in order to do that, um, I have to really look at how do I get better at those things each and every day.
Mm-hmm.
So is it helping me to, am I better at being a dad, or better at being a father or husband, um, by not having no breaks, not taking any vacations, this, that, and the other. And when I look at it, and of course the answer is no, you're not the best husband when you're just working, not taking time to recognize, or your wife, or to spend time with your kids, and this, that, and the other. So when I look at those things and I say, okay, well, I'm being intentional about taking vacation, taking time, not working on Sundays or whatever it might take in order to build in that self care. And then one of the greatest things I heard this year that I've really taken to is one of the brothers in our Aya circle said, put yourself on your calendar. And so that's probably that was so impactful when I heard that I've never let that go. And so now I just take a I look at the calendar, like which day on here is for me. And it's real
Yes.
easy to see, hey, I haven't put myself on my calendar yet. You know what I'm saying? And take the
Yeah.
time to do that.
I love that. I also heard that, and I haven't put it into practice quite yet because I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. Sometimes I look at my calendar and I don't
Mm-hmm.
see any white space on there, and it gives me
Mm-hmm.
anxiety because it's
Mm-hmm.
just like you looking up that mountain you got to climb,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to use the word afraid. I'm afraid if I schedule myself on that calendar, that's going to take more white space up and add to my anxiety. Even though that's not what it's supposed to do, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Uh, I want to ask you at least one more question here before we go to our next segment. That you and I have talked offline about the challenges of this type of work. We all know, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, how hard it is personally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, uh when you have all of these factors working against what your purpose is, especially if you lose a young person who you've come to love and have developed a relationship. I call all of my people I've worked with, those are my little brothers or nephews, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On the other side of that, there those moments that you know that you've been successful. Can you talk about that just a little bit? I mean, yeah, I don't even know how to cue the question up because you
Mm-hmm.
called me a couple times this in the last week, even with a couple of success stories. Can you talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah, that's crazy. I kind of knew that this is where you were going, and kind of I'm kind of getting a little emotional um, because, and I'll tell you what was coming to mind even while you're talking. I didn't totally hear everything you're saying, but I kind of knew where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
But I think recently, for me, ironically, with this question, Most High has, I guess, one of the things, I don't know all of the reasons, but I think one of the reasons Most High has wanted me to kind of notice or see my value. I think that's, maybe just motivate me to keep going. And in doing this has revealed to me two of my young men who I worked with years ago, who I haven't heard from in years. I got a text one day from another young lady who does this work, and she's great in what she does. And somehow she ran across this young man, and through talking, mentioned my name, and he was like, Troy Grimes. I know Troy Grimes. That's my mentor. And he helped me do this. And I worked for his mom at the Hope Center in the summers. And I know him, and I know that family very well. And she texted me and was like, hey, this young man said he knows you. Can I give your number? And I asked who it was. I said, of course, you can give him my number. And so met up with him. He's doing really good. This past weekend, he and a group of youth that he works with, called with Beyond the Walls, I believe it's called. They actually presented at Active Collective Trauma Summit that I helped to host this past weekend. And this same young man who I worked with years ago and was going through all these issues and problems, this, that, and the other, is now presenting. Um,
Yeah.
on how to work with youth and to support youth with their trauma, etc. He actually was speaking about the power of art and how that helped him. So oh man, it was so great to see him, talk to him. We're gonna keep in touch, of course. Now as I got to see his mother, and that's just so gratifying, rewarding when you have those types of success stories. But they don't happen overnight, right? When I was last
Mm-hmm.
dealing with him and lost conversation with him, he was still in the middle of it, and so to hear, that some of those things and some of our relationship had something to do with him still holding on to and finding a way to get better and to continue to better himself is great. Another young man, um, just the other day, same situation, and I get in contact with him. He gets in contact with me, and he just got his CDL and has a wife, and 21 years old, and he has a child, and it's just his mom specifically said to me, she said, "Can you believe it, Troy?" I said, "I could believe it, but man, does it feel good." She's like, "I just, and I don't necessarily think I need this all the time, but just, she said, I just appreciate you guys so much." And she was actually talking about me and you, and I just thank you, and I'll never forget you, Troy. And that felt good, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
lastly, just to share, because you're talking about these success stories, the greatest success story, the one that I began to get emotional that came to my mind when you're talking, wasn't even youth that I've worked with in the past. What came up for me immediately was my little brother, um, and the fact that he's leading a youth organization, a volunteer youth organization, the Park Hill Falcons. The director, has taken over as a director since my mom's passed, but he's been with the organization for several years as the program manager. And that's probably the greatest success story for me, is just to know that he was able to watch his brother and see what I do, and, you know, kind of help him decide that he wanted to continue on our family's legacy as well. And if his brother could do it, then he definitely could do it. And so he's probably the best success story that I could think about.
I absolutely love that because, again, you and I are closest brothers, and I know the story that's there, right? From beginning to end. I mean, there is no end, beginning to
Right.
now. And the other part of that is there's people out there who have a whole nother narrative or try to put a whole other narrative about him and who he
Mm-hmm.
is and try to shackle him to his past.
Mm-hmm.
And I know who that man is as a father, as a brother, as a son, as a community leader.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hadn't known him, if I don't know him like I do, and somebody try to tell me, well, this is who he is, the way that he holds himself and conducts himself, I'll be like, so, like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. So I sure appreciate that as well. Thank you, man, for sharing all of that. This is great. This is great. I'm going to shift us now into a segment of the show I call "What's the Word," and essentially it's a word association where I'm going to give you a word or a phrase, and you respond with the first word or complete the phrase with a word or even a short phrase. You ready?
Ready or not.
Here we come. Legacy is
My calling.
community. Community is the solution to gun violence is
Ujima. Collective responsibility.
the one thing I want people to know about our young people is
Subject matter experts.
favorite food, favorite book,
Any novel. Walter Mosley.
favorite form of self care,
Bike riding.
favorite television show.
Sports. So shallow.
Not at all, not at all. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? There's so many. I'll go with Fences.
Guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. Pedicure.
If I wasn't doing community violence intervention work, this type of work, my career would be
NFL coach.
I am.
King.
My theme song is
Redemption song. Marley.
love it, love it, love it. All right, brother. That is that's what's the word. Thanks for playing along, man. Um, look, I can't thank you enough. My heart's full of gratitude for you scheduling this interview, coming on the show. It's called the Credible Messenger. And again, a credible messenger, we know what that means in the context of the work that we do. It's someone who has that lived experience, that person who can relate to the people who they are serving and can bring a message that's going to assist whoever they're serving achieve their goals and objectives. With that said, I see you absolutely as a prototype as of a credible messenger. And I would like to give you an opportunity to share a final message with our audience.
Yeah, first I just wanted to thank you, John. I know, you know, we're speaking in this forum, but, we speak as friends, um, and as a brotherhood all the time, man. I just really want to thank you, and I appreciate you. What you do in this world and in this work is invaluable, and I'm just, I appreciate you so much. I'm also so proud of you. I've watched a lot of your growth. Um, and just as you were speaking about me and others, folks have a perception of you and who you are. And some of those perceptions are so wrong. I know there's people that even have asked or wonder or ask in other forums, why do I mess with you? And I, you know, I just believe that they have no idea who you are and what you do, and the value in it. So I just thank you for everything that you do, and even this platform. This is just a great, creative, thoughtful, important platform that you're attempting to build here. And so any way that I could support with this, I'm happy to do so. And as far as a message that I would like to put out there, I would just say this is something that my family and I say all the time. It's kind of a model for myself and my wife and my kids, and it comes from the life lived by my daughter Destiny, who in her 23 years was just a bright light on this earth, always willing to help, always greeting with a smile, always looking at the positive side of things. She was the even though she was the youngest daughter, she was actually, the glue to our family and to her siblings, always the one to bring things together and just keep the peace. And so we say love like destiny. And so I think, the answer to, I always say lead with love, and a lot of people say lead with love. And so I believe in that. So love like destiny.
Ashe, Ashe. Brother, again, thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this because you brought this up earlier. One of the reasons I love you so much and I respect you so much is because you taught me a really important concept I had heard my entire life, but I never really understood what it meant and never was able to practice it until you spoke to me about it. The importance of grace. Right. You are one of the most graceful people that I know, and even without the conversation of you explaining to me, literally explaining to me what grace is, it shows up in how you move and in how you mentor and how you parent, and it's a model. So I appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for sharing some time with me. Let me close this up with, how can people get in touch with you? How can people learn more about you, the Legacy Foundation, the work you do, and if there's anything that you would like for people to know about?
Sure. Right now, we're in the process of building out a website, so I don't have the web address as of yet, building out all our social medias. However, you can just get directly in touch with me. Email is tgrimes.biggerthanme@gmail.com. So you can get directly in touch with me if I need to direct you to my wife for mental wellness supports or whatever, then she'll contact you. Or if it's in regards to any of our other services, then we'll get you taken care of. Yes, there is something that I would like folks to be aware of. We are partnering with communities with intention to bring AccuDetox free of charge to our community. So yeah, come on, get you some AccuDetox. For those that don't know what that is a form of acupuncture that is specific to the ear, where most of our nerves that affect different sensitivities like that concerned or are based around trauma live. So this particular therapy, and this is an ancient old therapy, but it's been proven to help to relieve stress, to folks that are grieving or have gone through grief, so grief trauma and all sorts of different traumas, this AccuDetox supports with. Along with it, the way they do it, there's some aromatherapy that is being given and some sound therapy as well. So I invite all of that, and that's located at 2840 Fairfax Street, Denver, Colorado, 80207, which is where our offices lie. And that's going to be every Monday, 6 p.m., free of charge to all. So come on and get you some of this wellness and relaxation.
You heard it. Come get you some wellness and relaxation. And the fact that I got a wellness and relaxation dealer on the show should let you know that I'm a credible messenger. I got the plug. Right on, dog. Man, so again, I'm really grateful, really appreciative of you being on the show. Thank you. For our listeners, man, I hope you enjoyed this episode and this conversation. As always, I attempt to leave it real, unfiltered, authentic, so that you can hear what the work is really like and how you can be successful in it. So I encourage you to subscribe, like, download this episode, and again, subscribe so you can be notified and be aware when the next episode with the next credible messenger is available. Thank you all. Peace.
Peace.